Hundreds of state line leaders gather in Rockford Tuesday to talk about their hopes for the region in 2026.
Yeah, WIFR reporter Bria Walters learns about the role local legislators play in making those hopes a reality.
We are a hub because we have this cog.
An event to strengthen the region's collective voice, Northern Illinois Council of Governments holds its third legislative luncheon.
We can talk about the issues that are so important so we're all on the same page, whether we agree or disagree.
Rockford Mayor Tom McNamara is the president of North Cog. He says 25 members in a room together helps the region thrive, especially with input from local legislators.
We depend so much on our partnerships and relationships with state legislators, and to be able to ask them direct questions, it really gets away with any confusion.
Topics of pensions, housing, and an end to youth violence were key points. State Representative Dave Vella expects big changes ahead.
The train obviously is very, very important. Stellantis is very, very important. But also trying to work on the pensions, getting that taken care of, and more growth in the area.
Another topic brought up by the panel of legislators is data centers in the region. Senator Dave Severson says Illinois misses out on them.
But if we do pass it, we have an opportunity to have 2 projects in Northern Illinois that will create hundreds of good-paying jobs.
And in 2026, Mayor McNamara hopes to see significant issues tackled first. North Cog is just one part of doing that.
Working together as a region, we're much stronger than if just Rockton moves forward or just Rockford.
In the state line, Bria Walters, WIFR News.
In previous years, North Cog supported Belvedere in its work on Stellantis reopening and helped secure $2 million in state funding for the Northern Illinois Land Bank Authority.